Alright, this is an introduction video on how to solve the Rubik's Cube. A couple pretty cool facts about the Rubik's Cube. There's 43 quintillion different combinations on a solvable Rubik's Cube. To put that in perspective, you could take, if you had one Rubik's Cube, each cube had a different combination, you could cover the entire surface of the Earth, and you would have 273 Rubik's Cubes on top of each other. If you were to put them end to end like this, and every cube would be a different combination, it would be 261 light years of length. If you were to turn a Rubik's Cube one turn per second, and each time you turned you had a different combination, it would take you 1.4 trillion years to achieve every single different combination you can on a Rubik's Cube. Putting that in perspective, from the Big Bang till today, the universe is 14 billion years old. That amount of time you'd have to multiply by 9,986 to achieve all the different combinations per second. And that's only on the solvable cubes. So if you take all that stuff and you multiply it by 12, that's what you can get with combinations if you were to take the cube apart and put it back together incorrectly, where it's not solvable. This is a non-solvable cube. It has an edge parity. You'll never see only two edges out of place. It won't happen unless you take it apart and put it together incorrectly. It'll never happen. Here's another parity where you just have one corner piece that's twisted. It could be twisted this way or this way. This would never happen on a solvable cube. Another parity would be two corners that are out but everything else is in. This will never come up. And only one edge or an odd number of edges flipped. Edges always flip in pairs or an even amount. So on a solvable Rubik's Cube, that's where all those numbers came from. And the likelihood of putting this back together, all these pieces back together randomly, the likelihood of it being solvable is 1 in 12. So let's talk about some of the pieces. This is kind of an introduction before we do any tutorials on how to actually solve it. There's three types of pieces. There's center pieces, corners, and edge pieces. The center pieces are fixed, so they're stationary. They don't move. As you can see, they're all screwed into a core. So the way a Rubik's Cube is set up is, yellow and white are always opposite, green and blue are always opposite, orange and red are always opposite. And since these are stationary, the center will always tell you what the color will be for that side, for that face, when it's solved. So with edge pieces, there's 12 of these guys, and they just go between two centers just like that. Since blue and green are opposite, you'll never have a blue-green edge piece. You're only going to have 4 white edge pieces, 4 yellow edge pieces, 4 greens. You'll never have 5 green edge pieces. There's no such thing as a green and a blue edge piece because they're too far apart. So then we got corners, which have 3, and the corners go between, the edges here. So the way you determine, if it's the correct corners, is it yellow here? Is it orange here and blue here? No, it's not. So it's in the wrong spot. So you can kind of think of a corner piece as being connected to 3 centers. So you'll never have, there's a red, white, and blue, but there's never going to be a corner that's white and yellow and anything else, because white and yellow are too far apart in order for that to happen. So it's kind of to show, a lot of people don't understand when people say that the centers are stationary, but it's a lot easier to understand when you see them. They don't move. Everything's going in orbit around them. So in order to solve the Rubik's Cube, the first way you generally learn, the way I learned, is layer by layer. You solve the first layer. You almost treat it like 3 different puzzles. You solve the first layer, then you solve the second layer, then you solve the third layer. And of all of those different combinations of things of how many different permutations this can be mixed up in, any Rubik's Cube in any mix-up can be solved in 20 moves or less. That's what they call the God number. Like if you were to give God a Rubik's Cube, he should be able to solve it the most efficient. And it would be in 20 moves or less. Speed solvers usually takes us about 60, 70 moves, depending on the way you do it. But beginner's method, it'll probably take about 150 moves, but it's easy. So it's not efficient, but it's easy and it works every time. So yeah, the odds of this being a solvable cube are 1 in 12. So what we're going to do is I'm going to break down the videos so they're kind of short. So if you learn one thing and then you kind of get stuck on the other, you don't have to get to the middle of a video. It might be a 3-minute video and you can just kind of rewatch that 3-minute video. So that's it for the introduction. What we're going to do is this kind of makes up all the different steps that it'll be. We're going to chip away at it. And since there's only 20 cubes out of the 26, 6 of them don't move. There's only 20 cubes that we are solving. Each cube that's in its proper orientation and permutation accounts for 5% of it being solved. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to do a white cross where we get these edge pieces in. And when we're done with that, it's going to be 20% solved. All right, so that'll be on the next video.